Salvage, a story by user Rantarian. Chapter 39, Meetings and Partings. Cimbrian. Jennifer Delaney, mid-20s. Space babe pirate queen / colonial governor. Angrier than anybody might have been angry before in the history of time. Part of her was afraid she might have scared the absolute shit out of Dara Houston, but the rest of her was too angry to give a shit. Adrian Saunders was alive somewhere, and he was a big blue hairy man, and he had saved her life in a flurry of violence, and hadn't had the decency to stick around. But he'd clearly been through a lot, and maybe there was a reason, and this line of thinking wasn't helping her stay angry. And the worst part? The others had clearly known. They had known, and they had chosen not to tell her. Or, more accurately, they had known and obeyed Adrian's request that she not be told. Even now, after all she'd done for them, they were still following Adrian. That was the especially infuriating bit. It was like they just saw her as someone who was keeping the seat warm until Adrian got back. Oh, they liked her well enough, but Jen had never done something completely psychotic that somehow managed to work. No. All Jen had done was establish a well-oiled pirating company and a heavily defended fortress on a garden world. All Jen had done was come up with a series of innovations that let them hunt traders and hunters alike. All Jen had done was move them from being a pack of useless yobs on the Zottersill to a professional group of soldiers who were feared throughout Kelsey space. That was all Jen had done. And there weren't any fucking statues of her. Why did Adrian get two? She was angry. She was absolutely angry. She was crying. Jen wiped the palm of her hand across both cheeks to clear away the tears, but they kept coming. She wasn't even sure why. She sat on the edge of her bed and wept quietly, although her body trembled all over. At least she'd had the good sense to seal herself away in her own bedroom before this ridiculous roller coaster of emotions had started. Explaining the violent mood swings to her troops might have been quite the challenge. She fell back onto her bed and hugged to her blankets, her mind casting back to that day on Erbzerk once more, and seeing it in a whole new light. Had he come to save her? How had he known what was happening? Why was he all blue and hairy? Why had his eyes been so very sad? Jennifer Delaney's heart ached something terrible. She had just started to move past the fact that Adrian Saunders had died, murdered by the hunters in a bold last stand. In that light, she had been able to frame it as an almost noble end, if you avoided thinking about all of the unpleasant little details. Now Adrian Saunders was alive, and that meant two things. First, that he'd beat the ever-loving shit out of the hunters through yet another completely mad-as-all-fuck plan, and second, that he hadn't seen fit to return to his friends after doing so. What that meant she had no idea. What should I do? She wondered aloud. Should she search for him or not? What if he didn't want to be found? Worse, what if he didn't want to be found by her? Why did she care? She was supposed to hate that stupid Australian psychopath. She couldn't handle not knowing. So she made her decision. She opened up a communication link to Karr. Karr? Trix? Are you there? She asked, her usual voice of authority gone. Are you all right, Jen? Karr responded after only a brief moment. Her voice was full of real concern and regret. We are so incredibly sorry. We just didn't know how to tell you, so we didn't. Jen steadied her breathing and swallowed her tears again. There would be time for her to discipline them later, when she had full control of herself again. I want to know where he is, Trix. Can you try and see if... He's on Kavaris, Karr replied immediately. Or at least I think so. There were reports of a blue hairy humanoid being at the scene of substantial violence and destruction, so it just seemed really likely. Kavaris? Jen asked, raising herself from the bed. Where's that? It's part of the Dominion, Karr replied. It's a core world of the Kortai Directorate. I couldn't tell you what he's been doing there. The Kortai? Jen asked. He might be in serious trouble then. I mean, the hair suggests something. Perhaps we should talk to our own Kortai about that, Karr suggested. Dr. Gersnick may be able to tell you more. Then I'll have to talk to him, Jen said. And then when we find out the details, I'm going to go find Adrian and punch him right in his damned mouth. Dara Houston sat in the medical room under armed guard, being administered by a deeply worried-looking Kortai doctor. Dara wasn't sure why the Kortai was worried, when Dara was the one who was being treated as a prisoner. A fact that, had he known before arriving, may have deterred his adventure here altogether, Now he was sitting on a hospital bed wearing very little in the way of clothing and feeling remarkably exposed to the eyes of everyone in the room, not least the Courtai doctor, who was just the right height to cop an eyeful of his gentleman parts. "I'm going to ensure your health and well-being," the Courtai doctor had told him, being very careful not to make any sudden movements. "My name is Dr. Gersnik, and I am a spy for the Courtai Directorate." Dara blinked. "What? You're admitting something like that?" He looked around at his guards, who seemed remarkably nonplussed by the admission. This was not a normal situation, and yet they were treating it otherwise. "Do not tell me any information that you do not want the Directorate to know about," Gersnik continued, although he seemed remarkably annoyed about it all. "And do not include me in any discussions you do not want disclosed to the Directorate." "Oh, so it's some sort of warning," Dara replied, beginning to understand. It seemed like the doctor had to report everything he knew, but he had decided to make this fact known, and in doing so, he became an ally of those he technically spied upon. "Your blood pressure is normal," Gersnik continued. "Everything is as we'd expect it to be. You've been surviving on routine frontline treatments, however, and the scans show minor damage to your organs as a result." Both of Dara's eyebrows went up in alarm. "Wait, what was that?" "I will suggest allocating one of our growing stockpile of long-term implants to you," Gersnik continued, unperturbed. "Otherwise, I can allocate a supply of frontline treatments to you. It's not as though it costs us anything after all. That is one of the main benefits of stealing everything you have, I'm told." "I guess it is," Dara agreed. That was when the door opened and Jennifer Delaney strode in. There was less of the angry woman here now, thank God for that, and she looked like she had been crying. Dara wasn't entirely clear on why, but he had the feeling that there must have been something going on between Jennifer Delaney and Adrian Saunders before it ended badly, and that Dara had stupidly added some upsetting information into the mix. She glanced at him, and then turned her attention to Gersnik. Dara felt the burn of instant dismissal and the gratitude of not being the target of the crazy bitch's attention for the time being. At most, he'd just stay quiet and pretend to not be there if she started shouting at the Courtai doctor. "Dr. Grizzles," she said as she approached, and Dara had to suppress a fit of laughter, and when he failed to do so entirely, was forced to disguise it as a coughing fit. "Organ damage," he said by way of excuse when Gersnik turned a cool stare his way. The Courtai sighed. "Miss Jennifer," he said, "how may I be of service?" "I want to know how a human male might be covered in blue hair by Courtai science," Jennifer said. "And for what reason?" Gersnik paused for a moment. "That is an unusual request. May I assume you're talking about the blue-haired creature that saved your life on Erbzerk?" "You're talking about Adrian," Dara interjected. Both Jennifer and Gersnik then turned to him, staring at him as though he were a complete idiot. Gersnik actually closed his eyes briefly in frustration, and looked like he was in almost physical pain. "Adrian Saunders was the blue-haired biped?" he asked. "No, don't confirm it again." Gersnik sighed deeply. "Please don't reveal any more surprising details I don't need to know about." "Perhaps you should just not say anything," Jennifer suggested somewhat unkindly, "and close your legs." Dara hurriedly did so, and proceeded to stare at his lap shamefacedly. "I know how that would be accomplished in Adrian Saunders," Gersnik said, although given his unique biochemistry... "Sorry, what?" Jennifer asked. "Unique biochemistry? This is the first I've been hearing about that." Gersnik sighed. It seemed he had become quite proficient at that particular expression. "I suppose I can't just ask you to forget about that? I had thought you knew." "Explain it now," Jennifer told him. "Adrian Saunders was exposed to a chemical that alters his biochemistry," Gersnik said reluctantly. "That is why he is a physically perfect human specimen and, for all intents and purposes, biologically immortal." "The man's immortal?" Dara asked, forgetting himself in his surprise. He quietened again when he received another look. "Immortal?" Jennifer repeated the question. She seemed remarkably pissed off by having learned this particular part, although Dara was starting to wonder more about the physically perfect part. "As I said," Gersnik replied, "his biochemistry was altered. You wouldn't be able to do skin grafts on him. His body would destroy the grafts within minutes. You'd have to alter his body further to grow it naturally." "Why would anyone want to do that?" Jennifer asked. "Unless they just wanted to make him look non-human." "That is the most reasonable explanation I can think of," Gersnik replied, "especially in light of the Great Hunt." "So he's in a really good disguise," Jennifer said, "but perhaps not so good that I can't find him." Date point: 3 years, 3 weeks after Vancouver. Council Hall on Carvaris, Courtai Directorate Core World. "You'll be happy to know that your old flame is coming to find you," Herbider told Adrian, relishing the look of pure confusion on the human's face. It was hard to achieve that look, but it was worth it, and it took the edge off the blinding white rage he had felt about Jennifer Delaney coming to Kavaris to search for Adrian Saunders. That was not a meeting he wanted to happen, but it now seemed inevitable. He reflected for a moment upon the fact that so many outsiders thought his species emotionless. That wasn't entirely untrue. It took a lot to move a Kortai to emotion involuntarily, but they had the ability to detach themselves from their emotions and work without their interference, and doing so all of the time was the line of thinking that was instilled into young Kortai. Herbider himself preferred to allow himself to feel them in situations like this, having come to learn what the rush of satisfaction could feel like. "Who?" Adrian asked a few moments after the announcement. He was clearly worried, but the look of confusion remained to confirm his ignorance as to the identity of this person. Herbider frowned. It wasn't as entertaining when the human didn't even know what was even being talked about. "Jennifer Delaney." "Oh, thank God," Adrian said with a greatly relieved sigh. "I thought you meant my wife for a moment there. Fuck, I nearly had a heart attack." "I had no idea you were married," Herbider replied flatly, detaching his emotions again before the disappointment set in. "It is exceedingly difficult to imagine you in a state of wedded bliss." Adrian grunted. "I think she thought the same thing, and that's why she fucked my mate. We were separated when you fuckers abducted me, and I'm happy to keep it that way from now until the end of fucking time." "So, Jennifer Delaney," Herbider said. "Anything you'd like to say?" "I don't think it'd be a good idea if we ran into each other," Adrian replied, and had the decency to look deeply discomforted by the idea. "How did she find me?" "A statue," Herbider said darkly, "on Erbzerk." "Fuck's sake," Adrian cursed. "I fucking told them not to do that." "Well, it hardly matters," Herbider said. "You've managed to achieve superb results. Within the week, the news networks will be picking up on the stories you've been sowing in your own special way. The whole Directorate, and even some of the Dominion, is talking about what's been happening here. They are talking about the violence, and soon they will be talking about the corporates making savage war on each other in our streets. The people will demand justice and laws to restrain corporate actions." "So you're getting what you want," Adrian replied. Herbider frowned. "Not simply what I want, but what the Directorate needs. For too long it has misdirected its efforts into prolonging a war with the Kelsey. Now, with your help, we will be able to draw it to a satisfying conclusion, without corporate interference." "Congratulations to us, then," Adrian said. "Does this mean that I can finally go back to looking how I used to?" "I don't see that I have any choice," Herbider replied. "The blue-haired biped needs to disappear, and you need to stop Jennifer Delaney from helping people make the connection between it and yourself." "How the fuck am I supposed to do that?" "I would suggest simply contacting her and telling her not to," Herbider said. "But if you feel the need for something more elaborate, I won't stop you. Simply do not provide the public with more blue-haired biped news to talk about. I want them focused on the corporate war story you've drummed up." "And what happens after that?" Adrian asked. "Now that this corporate issue has been taken care of." "If you're asking what is intended for you and your little team," Herbider replied, "then that is up to you. I will certainly be unable to use any of you for some time, as I will need to maintain my distance from you. But I will still find it deeply unsettling should you start taking work from my opponents instead." "Fuck, that makes my life hard, doesn't it?" Adrian asked with a grimace. "We won't be able to stay around here if we can't work." "Unfortunately not. But I do understand a certain pirate crew is hiring," Herbider suggested. "Perhaps you could find employment there." "You're really settled me talking to her, aren't you?" Adrian observed. "But it doesn't seem like I have much of a fucking choice." "It doesn't seem like you have much of a choice at all," Herbider agreed. Adrian returned to his team after his talk with Herbider, and then another discussion with the doctor who'd done his original grafting. It wouldn't take very long to reverse the procedure they'd put in place. It took less time to remove hair than to grow it, but he'd probably be stuck with blue hair until his natural brown returned. He figured he'd just shave it all off, because he'd look one hell of a lot less fucking stupid that way. "What did he say?" Askett asked as Adrian returned. He must have seen Adrian's grim expression shortly thereafter because he followed it with, "That bad?" "Not for you," Adrian replied. "Everything will be fine for you, but we won't be able to stay on this planet. Herbert here hasn't got any more work for us besides getting the fuck out of here." "So the bad news is all yours?" Askett asked with relief. "That I can live with." "Remind me why I don't strangle you in your fucking sleep," Adrian asked. "You enjoy losing at chess," Askett replied. "And who else is going to record your rampages for you?" "Somebody I don't want to meet is coming to meet me," he said. "I don't see much of a way I can get out of it." "You could try running away," Askett suggested. "That's what you normally do when you want to get out of something." "Fucking thank you," Adrian replied sarcastically. "I can't just run away. She'll start undoing our work without even knowing it if I just run."
"We could take her out," Cadogan suggested. "Double plasma blast to the upper torso. Pop, pop."
"I don't want to kill her," Adrian said in horror.
"To be fair, it's hard to tell with you sometimes," Askett interjected. "But look, why not just combine this concrete and wheat bix you're always going on about? And maybe that will resolve the issue."
Adrian glared at the Cortai. The smug little fucker knew exactly what that expression meant, and he was just feigning ignorance to make his point.
"What do we do, though?" Cadogan asked. "Once you're done with the concrete and wheat bix."
"I don't know, Cadogan," Adrian said. "That's up to you. We can stay together or we can go our own ways. But I know that I don't have a job for you and Margarita will be... But I know that I don't have a job for you and Margarita will be wanting her gear back."
"We can always make our own work," Askett said. "Have you seen how good we are?"
"You want to become a criminal again?" Adrian asked. "I thought your record was going to be wiped."
"Yeah, but that would require going back to an unthinking drone, and I find I enjoy my work here, as well as the many benefits that would come from using our skills for personal gain," Askett explained. "You have given me my revenge," Cadogan replied. "I will gladly lend my skills to whatever work you do."
"Huh," Adrian said thoughtfully. "I guess that means we're going freelance."
"Good," Askett replied. "Now what happens first?"
"First," Adrian said with a grimace, "I need to have one big fucking shave." He hoped his skin didn't itch too badly afterwards. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this one today. Sorry about the inconsistency of the uploads lately, just a lot of stuff getting in the way unfortunately, and I do apologize. But thank you so much for spending your time with me here today, and I hope I will see you in the next one. You all have a great day, and like, comment, subscribe, shill, do all the stuff I'm supposed to do. Patreon link in the description. Thank you guys so much. Big thanks to my patrons, and I hope you all have a great day. Bye.